Welcome to the Hockey Writers Ink, the show where the writer is fresh off the presses and the ink is not dry. Relax, the keyboard is off and the press box is closed, but the mic is just getting warmed up. Join your host, Lance Green, the guardian of the blue paint turned writer, and your co-host, Ron SteelFlyers, as we bring you all the latest on the Philadelphia Flyers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next episode of the Hockey Writers Ink with your host, Lance Green.
All right, guys, welcome to a Flyers-centric podcast here, a ranked Flyers podcast, I might add, yes?
Yeah, man, you got that right, buddy, in the top 10, and that's thanks to you folks out there. So big thank you to you folks out there. So by the way, if you like what we do, hit the like and subscribe. Lance, we haven't spoken in a little while here about Philadelphia Flyers hockey. We had a Four Nations break,
Right.
and we had Jimmy come on the show, and man, I'll tell you, big thank you to Jim Jackson for being on the show, the voice of the Philadelphia Flyers. It is always an honor to have you grace, our rinky little show. It's always an honor to have you on, sir, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on the show here with us. It's really an honor and a privilege, so thank you very much, sir. But now on to some business at hand, and the business at hand is this episode of the Hockey Writers Ink, and that's right, folks, we are talking about episode number 189. Oh my gosh, 189. Episode number 189, and some tough decisions lay ahead for the Flyers as the trade deadline looms. And this marries perfectly with Lance's article that he just recently released here just the other day. Hop on over to SteelFlyers.com and check out Lance's latest article. The editor-in-chief has always given us some great stuff to ponder, and with nothing left to ponder on this one as well, Lance has given us a lot to think about here on this one, and there are some tough decisions that are going to have to be made. And Lance, talk to me about some of the inspiration and some of the ideas that you have in your article, and some of the players that you talk about and where they could potentially end up and what we could get in return.
Sure. Well, yeah, that's going to be a mouthful, right? So we know
you had
that
to go there, didn't you?
Yeah, we know that before the break, Danny finally got rid of, and the break being the Four Nations Championships, finally got rid of Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. Now, definitely Morgan Frost was more happy to get rid of than Joel Farabee.
Oh wait, but I'm sorry, I'm being
collateral damage. It needed to happen in order to move in the right direction. Danny thought so. He shipped him out to Calgary, and that was back on January 31st. But with everything back, moving again into regular season play now, and the March 7th trade deadline looming ever closer. All right, tick, tick, right? It's going to be some tough decisions to make here in the next couple of days. Let's be honest. It's fastly approaching. We, being the team, made the decision to get rid of some of these guys, and when you start to sell some of these guys off, and settle for that second round pick like they did with Morgan Frost and some already drafted talent coming back, which they said they didn't want to do. They hung that bait out there for quite a long time with Morgan Frost, trying to get a first round pick for him, and it never came because he's not deserving of one. No. Kudos, hope him all the best and wish him all the best in Calgary, him and Joel, but just wasn't working here. But even with the Flyers playing great the last couple of games, this is Flyers hockey, right? They look like they're going to tank, and they win just enough games to not pick in the lottery, and lose just enough not to make the playoffs, and manage to get in that horrible area where they don't get a lottery pick, somebody that's going to be a game-changing type player in the draft, and then they manage not to make the playoffs and make a playoff run. So you get that 12, 13, 14, 15th overall pick. That's going to be another Scott Lawton. It's going to be another Morgan Frost. Going to be another Tyson Forrester, a good NHL player, but not a game changer. And speaking of Scott Lawton, we all know that his name as well has been in the trade rumors for quite some time. We know the Flyers absolutely are in love with him. And I mean, let's be honest, he's been a good pro, right? I mean,
okay, but they're so in love with him, Lance, that they got a second round offer for him, and they didn't take it. You pointed this out in your article.
I did.
You're not gonna get a first round pick for Scott Lawton, even if it's a team that is, I mean, like some of the other teams that I've seen him rumored to be, for like Edmonton, they don't even have a first round pick. Some of the other teams don't even have a good first round pick. Why would you do that? Hey man,
Well, let's talk about it, Steel, because I mean, he's gonna be 31 years old pretty soon. He's been in the league 12 years. He's all with the Flyers. And he's been a consummate professional. Let's say it. I mean, he's well respected in the locker room. He gives 110% while he's out on the ice. He forechecks, he back checks. But
he's a consummate teammate.
He's been here 12 years. He's been part of the mediocrity for some time. He's grown accustomed to this losing ways and not really being this competitive force in the playoffs. And to be honest, he's a cookie cutter type piece here because he's Scott Lawton. You had Morgan Frost, you got rid of him. You have Sean Couturier, you have Paling, you have Noah Cates, who's playing really well right now. But they're all the same player. They're all the same player. Cookie cutters, right?
Yeah.
And even with Scott Lawton, he has the ability to play wing. He has the ability to play center. But he's got 8 goals and 22 points at the time I wrote this article. He's making $3 million, so it's not really a bargain, but it's not really overpaid. He's signed through the end of next season, and teams are going to be calling about him because if they've already made a big move, he can be that kind of guy that can kind of be a safe pick. And with all the other guys that are out there as far as centers go, as far as, Brock Nelson, he's getting paid $6 million. Dylan Cousins from the Sabres is getting paid over $7 million. And of course, Peterson from the Canucks is, $11.6 million. So Scott Lawton's a bargain pick, but let's face it, he's not worthy of a first round pick in my mind. And I said this, like Steele said in my article, the Flyers have to stop thinking that he's going to be and accept a second round pick for him, but be ready to fire back when they offer that second round pick. And just like they did with Calgary, when I predicted that for Morgan Frost as well, in saying, hey, we wanted a first round pick. We'll settle for a second round pick from you, but you're going to have to give us an already drafted prospect that is close to being ready. We want to turn the tide here. We want to compete at some point. You guys are in a playoff spot. You guys are in need of this player. Show me you're in need of him and let a prospect come. And for Scott Lawton's sake, I suggested the Toronto Maple Leafs because they were rumored to be kicking the tires pretty heavy on him. And he's from Toronto area, just probably an hour or so away from Toronto.
Yeah.
So I don't think he would have a problem with going back home there. And the Maple Leafs could use him. Honestly, they have Matthews, they have Tavares. He would slot in nice in that third line role and kind of solidify three solid lines for them. And what
as
they
long
have.
as Scotty's not too bad on the face-off dot neither, you know.
I mean, he can play wing, he can play center. He's versatile.
Exactly.
You know, I can see why the Flyers don't really want to just give him away. But at the same time, he's been here for over 12 years. He's 31 years old. If you're really building for the future, is a 31-year-old in your 5-year plan?
I mean,
I don't think he should be. I don't think he should be. I think you have the depth on the team as far as veterans go. Obviously, you're not going to get rid of Sean Couturier and that massive contract you gave him. So you have veteran presence there.
Well, I don't know. They got rid of Joel Farabee pretty lickety split.
Well, that's $5 million, not the ungodly amount that, you know, Sean Couturier is getting found. But, you know, I suggested a second round pick and a particular player in, you know, Toronto's scheme of things there in their prospect pool, who also plays with Oliver Bonk and Denver Barkey. I'm sorry. You know,
I mean, that's brilliant, by the way.
You know, I really like that Cohen. You know, I really like him. But, you know, that would be something that would entice, you know, not only Briere, but, you know, the team to bring back somebody like that young, who's already playing with some of your top prospects that you've drafted.
I would even be willing to give up. Yeah.
But I mean, the Jets are the team that has shown and come out and said that they've well, maybe not them, but the powers that be, as far as the rumor mills go, and have come out there and said that they've offered a second round pick, and if they don't sit here and take it, you know, that would give them 5 second round picks. You know how you could package that up and move up to draft another first round pick or 2 with that amount of picks. You could have potentially 4 first round picks this year if you wanted them. If you wanted to package them up and move into the first round to select somebody, you could draft 5 prospects in the second round and 2 in the first, or whatever you end up getting for anybody else you trade, and totally rehaul your whole prospect pool here. And because honestly, even with the Phantoms playing as good as they are right now, I do think they need to clear house on some of these prospects that are kind of just stuck in that.
I agree.
And, you know, some are still prospecting and coming up the ranks and, you know, doing that and going through the steps.
But some need to go.
But some need to go. They've been there for 4 or 5 years. They're not, you know, moving on. You need to make room for new blood in the lineup and not just have them be 30-year-olds and still playing in the AHL. That's not getting them anywhere. You need a couple of those guys, but you don't need a whole roster of those guys. And, you know, we talked about that as well with another another potential player here in a bit. But I mean, am I wrong still in thinking that? I mean,
so here's kind of what my take on this whole thing is about where I believe the Flyers are looking at this. The Flyers look at Scott Lawton, and I can understand why they're asking for a first round pick, because that's what they mean to the Flyers. Unfortunately, the league is not looking at Scott Lawton and going, "Ooh, yeah, I'm going to give you a first round pick for that guy, a 31-year-old that only has 22 points on the year." I mean, it's okay. Yeah, he's only making $3.5 million a year for the next 2 years or whatever, but so what? That's a drop in the bucket for some of these teams. You know what I'm saying? Quite honestly, I think they should take the offer from the Jets, take the second round pick, see if they can get a prospect-ready guy to come back as well. I would much rather have somebody like that, honestly, Lance, somebody that's been proven over the last 2 years and the last 2 drafts, that they could potentially take, because you're not gonna get a first round pick for him. You're just, as far as I'm concerned, you're not, in my opinion. Okay, the Flyers I think are are dangling that bait too deep down the hole, and there isn't a single fish out there grabbing on that, and they're trying to offer up us a hey, we'll give you a second round for him. You know what I mean? Like, kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
there should be some leeway back and forth there. But let's correct our numbers here for a second. He's got 27 points on the year this year.
all right.
On average, over his 12-year career in Philly, he's only averaged 8 goals and 22 points a year. Over his 12-year time span, if you take all of it and add it all together, and
Yeah.
mostly his on average, he's scoring about 8 goals and 22 points.
So okay.
Every year. So that's not,
Okay.
Maybe 30
you're
points
not
one year,
lighting it
maybe
up.
20, 15 the next, So anyway,
Right.
clearing that up.
You're not lighting it up. Okay, is the point. And he is a serviceable NHL professional hockey player, and that's as far as he goes. He's way past a ceiling. There's nothing else that's going to happen from him. You're lucky to get what you get. And now, what does he bring? He brings good locker room skills. Now, you can't say that, well, he's a Stanley Cup winning guy, because he hasn't been, right? And you can't say that he brings that kind of experience to a team that's trying to go for the cup.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I understand, Danny, that he's a first round pick worthy for you guys, for the Flyers, but not for the rest of the league. And you're gonna have to take what you can. Here's the other thing too. If the league stopped right now, I believe the Flyers would be 9th, 8th, or 9th. Okay? That doesn't qualify you for the draft. Right? As far as I know, I think you have to be in the top 6 or 8, maybe, or 7 to get in the draft.
To get into the playoffs, you mean?
No, the draft. The lottery. I mean, the lottery.
The lottery.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be the top like lottery, 10 teams.
Say that again?
Yeah, it'd be like the top 10 teams in the lottery.
Oh, top 10. All right, so if you're picking in at least within the top 10, which the Flyers would be right now, if the season stopped right now, the Flyers
if they quit winning games.
Okay. I'm with you. But see, all the others, and it's like, I understand, yeah, if they win a couple of quick games and then they could be right back in it. But I think with the moving of Frost and the moving of Joel and clearing the $7.1 million in cap space, the cap's going up next year. They've got a stockpile of draft picks that they're trying to build on as well. Because like what Lance said, I think what the Flyers are going to need to do is, and they're going to need to be smart about how they do this and not overspend, because that would be a huge mistake, because that would just waste away all the capital that you just tried to build. But you could package up, say, a first-round pick and 2 or 3 second-round picks in this year's draft to try to get in the top 3. See, my whole mentality, my whole idea of what I believe the Flyers need to do is pick in the top 3.
That's going to be hard to do, but at least in the top 5 players, I think there's at least 4 that are, guys that you could, build a team around, or, would be worthy of helping Mishkov in that sense, coming out very young and could play next year.
I'll concede to the top 5, but I believe, and this is what I've said this in the past, this needs to be the watershed year.
It does.
This needs to be the year where the wrench gets completely turned 60 or 80 degrees, where you turn the corner with some of the additions that you're going to do, with some of the draft picks that you're going to have, with some of the impact players that you could bring to the team, now that you have money to spend and draft pick capital to get players.
Yeah.
Okay? You can package up players that you have, some of the prospects that are, like what Lance said, are not doing well or are not progressing. You can package them up with draft picks as well to get where you need to go and get the players. Get your guy, Danny. You have built the capital to get your guy. Go do it.
Yeah,
Don't
and I
settle
do
for.
believe in Danny in his drafting abilities, and that who he has surrounding him to advise him. But yeah, I think this is the year that you need to shed. If you're going to shed, you traded Voracek, you traded Giroux, you traded Provorov, you traded Kevin Hayes, you now have moved on from Morgan Frost. You moved on from Joel Farabee. If you're going to do it, do it. Let's keep going. If guys have interest in a 31-year-old player, then let's do it. If he's not in your 5-year plan, then let's go get him out the door. You have other prospects, that are prospering, that are coming up the ranks. Then let's make the move. I like Scott Lawton, but if somebody's offering a 2nd-round pick now, then do it. And if you don't like that 2nd-round pick, then say, hey, you can keep that 2nd-round pick because the Jets is not very good. 2nd-round pick, let's be honest there. It's going to be a late pick. They're probably going to do pretty well this year. They're first overall last time I checked in the standings when I wrote this article. So, they got a 2-time Vezina Trophy winning goalie behind them. And honestly, I think they would be willing to move or do something because let's face it, Steel, they're hard to get free agents. Like nobody wants to go play in Winnipeg. Okay. It's snowy period.
Well,
it lasts 7 months. 7 months of snow up there.
Okay, but for nobody not wanting to play there, they got Rick Tocchet to be the coach, who is now a Jack Adams Award-winning coach, right? Didn't he win or was he up for it, or did he not win it?
He was up for it at least, but yeah,
he was up for it. But they got Rick Tocchet to come up there and coach. They got a 2-time Vezina winning goaltender to go up there and play.
Well,
they're building a team this year that's gonna be a force to reckon with in the playoffs. I mean, look at what they've done to the league so far this year. It was like what Lance said, leading in points and everything else like that. So I mean, if they're offering you a 2nd-round pick for Scotty Lawton, okay. If you don't want that 2nd-round pick, who do you got in prospects?
Right, and that's what I said.
Right.
I had them actually calling about Ristolainen, and Ristolainen's name has been passed around a lot as well.
For Ristolainen, Winnipeg for Ristolainen.
Well, that's what I had in my article is saying
okay.
that, I believe that, they may come calling for Ristolainen because they don't have a lot of right-hand shot defensemen. And, and they can't get free agents to want to come up there. They can build through the draft, and they have got certain players that have stuck around there. But let's be honest, if somebody calls for Ristolainen, he's a career minus 178. All right. He's making $5.1 million for the next 2 seasons. It's not horrible, but it's not good either.
No. And I would even eat some of that salary just to get him gone.
Yes. Yep. I would offer to eat a portion of that, a million of that or something for the next 2 years, if that meant him departing. And because you have Emil Andre, you have Jennings, you have Helge Grans, you have Oliver Bonk coming up. You have to make room for some of these guys coming up that have shown that they can play at the level, but they just simply don't have roster space right now. So if they have offered up a 2nd-round pick, or even say, hey, I don't want your 2nd-round pick, but if you want him that bad, how about give me a guy like Colby Barlow, who has scored 40 goals in juniors last season. He's 6'1", 194 pounds. He's an absolute dynamo offensively. He'd be an immediate impact on the power play. I don't know, man. I see something happening, or be willing to eat a guy's contract, like that's going to be at the end of the season to make the
Oh, no,
salaries
I'm with
work.
you.
Whatever you got to do to make
It's
something that's going to be up at the end of the year to bring back, just to make the deal work for Winnipeg. I'd rather have proven picks anyway that are prospering after being
all
drafted
day long.
and are
Yeah.
that much closer to being ready anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I mean, this is that moment now where it's the crap or get off the pot moment. You know what I mean? Because I really think that the Flyers need to embrace the fact that the moves that you've made, I think, free up some space, but I think might be signaling that, that they're going to say they're trying for the playoffs, but I think the moves that Danny Briere has made and potentially could make between now and the trade deadline is going to show that the Flyers are realizing that they're not going to make the playoffs this year.
Right. And I think, they need to sit back and take a look at what they're cherishing right now. Scott Lawton, like I said, has been here 12 years. He has 24 games of playoff experience in that 12 years. Okay.
Man, that's a pretty low number.
Ristolainen, you want to hear a low number? Ristolainen, he's 30 years old. He was drafted 8th overall in 2013, right? Supposed to be an amazing defenseman, Guess how many playoff games he has?
What, 3, 2? Big
0.
So,
all right. And
the
like
only
I
one
said,
that has any playoff experience is what? Eric Johnson? Right?
Yep. And and
Tortorella.
Sure. Yeah, right. And and he's played, and Ristolainen's played about the same number of years, 12 or 13 years. And guess what? This is the first year ever he's been a plus player.
Yeah.
First year ever. And he's been with the Flyers 4 years now. So to think that they are so overhyping their own players because they like them, they're not elite players. You used to see a first-round pick go to some maybe 30-year-old Vinny Lecavalier, or somebody who was a real star, somebody who won a couple of Stanley Cups. Maybe he's getting a little long in the tooth. Or Jerome McGinley, you pick him up for a playoff run. If you're looking good. These are not the guys that teams are gonna to give you a first-round pick for, to acquire, to bring in, that they're thinking about. And if they want to, the Flyers want to keep these people to continue on in their sense of mediocrity and just being just good enough to not make the lottery and just bad enough not to make the playoffs. You got to go through this. You got to go through and get rid of all this to start fresh. If you really want to do a full rebuild, which you look like you're trying to commit to, with the recent moves of Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee, then do it. Then get rid of everybody and start fresh and get as many picks as you can.
Do it. Might as well. Because not only are you going to help the team potentially now, but you're also going to help them in the long run. And I want to switch up here a little bit, Lance, because I want to talk a little bit about what the Phantoms have been doing here lately, and I think this ties in specifically to what we've been talking about with the Flyers. By the way, congratulations to the Phantoms, who are 6-3-0-1 in their last 10 games, and they've been quite, frankly, on a tear here as of late, with putting a lot of goals in, as well as the Flyers have been doing lately as well too. But like you said, Lance, there are those players that are down there in the Phantoms that probably wouldn't be playing in the Phantoms, would be playing with the Flyers right now, a la Emil Andre, a la, pick somebody, that would potentially be playing for the Flyers if it wouldn't be for some of that quote unquote Scotty Lawton-esque depth that the Flyers have, and also as far as the defensive end, with the Eric Johnsons and the whole 9 yards. I think Nick Delorier is going to go down this year with what? Maybe 15 games, maybe.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? And Eric Johnson's going to go down with maybe 25 or 30 games this year, maybe. Yeah, okay, look, I understand that you need to have those guys. But the only way you're really going to have those guys that are going to mean anything to this team are if you draft those players, develop those players, and then go to the playoffs with those players. I'm just you're not going to be able to buy your way to a championship. It's been proven that you cannot. Okay, many times over. And the Phantoms have an opportunity. They're fifth place in the division right now, and I think they are one spot out of a playoff right now. Okay, and I believe they have 19 games left. So the Phantoms absolutely have a shot at the playoffs. And I would much rather see the Phantoms be successful because it doesn't affect where they pick in the draft, quote unquote, if the Phantoms win a Calder Cup. You know, that does not affect how the Flyers pick in the draft.
No, it
Okay?
doesn't. It doesn't. And I see where your mind's going with that. I really see where your mind's going, like to keep these young guys, get them the playoff experience and everything like that. But at the same time, I can wish and hope that the Flyers make these moves that we just talked about, free up some space with the big club and allow guys like Emil Andre and maybe like a Helgi Grans to come up and see 15 games of NHL experience and then go back for the playoffs, right? Whatever amount of games left when they're dealt. And then you know what you're getting for next season. You know,
you mean bring them up now? Yeah.
Bring them up now and see what they got. So I can see both sides. I can see them wanting to stay down, get as much playing time in the minors as they can, and win a shot at the Calder Cup. Or I can see them gaining the NHL experience now if these players are dealt, and you know what you got for next season, heading into next season.
Well, okay, but I understand that, but the reason why I was trying to say that is because you're going to have some of our draft picks that are going to at some point here become available to the Flyers to play on the Phantoms.
Sure, guys in collegiate ranks and everything else. Yeah.
Okay, so that's exactly what I'm talking about here. You might be able to get a Bonk or a Barquet for 6-7 games, depending. Who knows, right? And where are you going to put them? Are you going to put them on the Flyers? Or are you going to put them down on the Phantoms? So that's kind of where I wanted to go with that. I think you need to get that experience from within. You get that experience with them guys down there in the Phantoms, and they win some playoff games, and they have, right? And some of them guys down there have won some playoff games last year and such. But get the experience, let them do the playoffs and whatever they want down there, and make sure that you get things right set up for the big club, okay? And with that, Lance, I think we have covered a lot here on this show, haven't we, man?
Yeah, I think we have, and I'll leave with one final thought here about the Flyers in a sense, and with this whole AHL NHL thing. If you think the Flyers are really for real, and you think that some people are saying, well, man, they've won some games recently and stuff like that. They played the Penguins. They're playing the Penguins again as we're filming this, but the Penguins, the last 3 out of 4 games they played, they beat them. They look like they're going to beat them again this time. But let's face it, the Penguins are not the Penguins from 10 years ago. Malkin is 38 years old. Crosby is 37 years old. Erik Karlsson's 34.
Yeah.
Malkin and Crosby are a minus 20-something on the year. These are not the players that they once were. This is not the Penguins team that they once were. This is the Penguins are in a very, very much thing that the Flyers were in with Voracek and Giroux getting up there in age and are going to have to really push them out the door and restart altogether too. So if you think that the Flyers are for real, let's see what they do March 1st against the Jets.
I mean, okay, yeah, 2 games against the Penguins, yeah, but they utterly dominated the Oilers when they played Edmonton. I mean, they made it so that McDavid was not a factor.
McDavid just came back from the Four Nations, too.
They made it so that Draisaitl was not a factor. Okay? And that in and of itself. Now, the goaltending was standing on its bloody head. Okay?
Both sides, yes.
Okay. But they looked really good. They dropped 6 on Edmonton. They came back out the next game, dropped 6 on the Penguins. And that game was, oh my gosh, man, I don't think I've ever seen the Penguins look like that. I just, and you can't tell me that it was, the Flyers playing that well. It was, I think it was more the Penguins weren't, so it is what it is. I think the Flyers are going to probably end up doing exactly what Lance said. They're going to lose just enough and win just enough. And that's where I think we're going to be. I don't think we're going to make the playoffs this year. I think they should be sellers at the trade deadline and try to shed as much as they possibly can and get as many more picks as you can and clear as much cap space as you can, because you're going to need some of that to pay some of the guys that are there now and to bring up some of the guys you need to get and to attract some free agents. Now that you have some money to spend, hey, but.
We're still in the second period, and Mishkov has 2 goals and 1 assist for 3 points in this game tonight. So he had an amazing, every game he's had an amazing game since this Four Nations break.
Boy, that's exactly what he needed, huh?
He's really buzzing, I think. And, it is nice to see that, but man, we need to gather all these picks and, like Steel said, focus on moving up in the draft and getting this young man somebody to play alongside so that he can have a McDavid, Draisaitl teammate to play with. He can have a Malkin, Crosby. That is, the essence that you build around, with this tandem, at least a tandem nowadays, and as a two-headed monster.
As Lance likes to always say, guys that you can hang from the banner, from the rafters. A banner you can hang from the rafters.
Hang it over the side of the building on the freeway. Yeah. Everybody's going to see that face. You need another.
Everybody in the stadium's faces. Got that jersey on. You know what I mean, right?
Yep. Okay. You go walk into your section with that Mishkov jersey on and
right at home.
Yep, 50 other people in that section have the same jersey because that guy is that popular. We had one of those players in Eric Lindros. We haven't had one really since. Maybe Giroux was a fan favorite, but that's all we had at the time.
Yeah, I agree. And when we had Lindros, there was so many other guys on the team that were such great players and such great contributors. But by the way, speaking of great contributors, big thank you to lowercaseblues.net. Head on over to lowercaseblues.net. Check out Jake and the boys. Man, I'll tell you what, thank you guys so very much for allowing us to have your music as our intro. And, man, I'll tell you what, I would like to try to get some kind of something arranged for a show to happen, for them to come and play. So we're trying to work on some things here at SteelFlyers to do something special for you guys this coming spring/summer. We're going to try to potentially do a live show somewhere, and maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, you can get some other things going on too. So be looking for that as well here, and some announcements for that coming up here soon too. Lance, thanks for all you do, man. Really appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, man. Again, guys, we love this team. We want to see them, turn the corner and do well. They're buzzing right now for sure with the additions. I like the additions that Danny made in these trades. And I think that's what he needs to do again. He needs to get another Peltier,
Do some more.
And prospering young prospect, either just on the brink of making the NHL or maybe a season or two in the NHL and is really about to get going.
Yeah.
Man, let's move out some others and continue on with this rebuild and really push it into overdrive.
Like I said, I think this has to be that watershed year,
I think so.
that turning the corner year where you make those 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever key moves that you need to make in order to get to that point of contention sooner rather than later, I believe, is what needs to happen here for Philadelphia. Just my opinion. But thank you, Lance, for all you do, man. Really appreciate that. I'm your co-host, Ron SteelFlyers. And this has been the latest episode of the Hockey Writers Ink. And we will catch you all on the next one.